Right, hello guys, and welcome back. Today I have a Prismatic Warlock build for you that actually holds a pretty special place in my heart because actually this is the first ever Warlock build that I made for the channel way back in the final shape. If this thumbnail looks familiar to you, then please let me know down in the comments because I know quite a few people caught onto the channel because of this video. And actually this was my favorite Warlock build to run throughout the entire year of the final shape. And back then, the reason that I made the build was because I wanted to take advantage of the brand new Transcendence meter. Because obviously with final shape it was completely new, and the whole idea of the build was to get back your Transcendence as quickly as possible within 10 seconds or so. And I still want to maintain that fantasy today. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you how you can get your Transcendence as quickly as possible, taking advantage of some powerful buffs to some exotics that have been changed recently in Renegades, and overall just redoing and refurbishing that one build that I know a lot of you came to the channel for back in the day. So I really hope you enjoy today's content, and if you do, then a like and subscribe is very much appreciated. So today's build is going to focus around Doxia, because this is the one that we used back in the day, and it states that targets damaged by your arcane needles emit a suspending detonation when defeated. Landing multiple arcane needles or needle storms on the same target immediately trigger a larger, more powerful detonation. So that is the buff that happened in Renegades, and by the way, needle storm is fixed now. And then it says defeating suspended targets grants melee energy. Your arcane needles are strong against barrier champions. So there's a lot to unpack with this exotic. There is kind of so much going on, but essentially killing an enemy with the needle is going to make a suspending explosion in a relatively decent radius. But also, if I use my needle against a target and then I defeat them afterwards, you see they're kind of marked by this green mark here. That basically means that when you defeat them, they are also going to make a suspending explosion. So you can mark them. Your teammates also see the mark, I believe. So it's not just you. Everybody who is in the lobby sees this, which is pretty cool. So that is going to make that suspending explosion, which is pretty nice. And obviously it's going to be great for gaining your dark Transcendence energy, because suspending explosions actually do cause a lot of your dark meter to be charged, which is pretty good. Then the other part about Needlestorm and Doxia is that now in Renegades, Doxia is like a Curus equivalent for Needlestorm, where it increases the damage of this suspending explosion that the exotic causes. So if we take a look, I'll try and get it so all the needles hit first try on Carl, so fingers crossed. There we go, he behaved. So we're hitting for 12,359. So remember that, we're going to test this versus a Curus Thunder Crash now. Okay, so here we are on the Titan, and I'll show you what a Curus Thunder Crash does. Wait for the whole duration here. It's around 15,313. So to be honest, it is lower, but it's not that different from a Curus Thunder Crash. It is a very high damaging super. So whenever you come across like a high value target or just like a beefy, chunky boss on the field, definitely good to use your Needlestorm, but also just use your Needlestorm if there's a bunch of ads grouped up, because you're going to be making a lot of threadlings from the Needlestorm as well. So it's good for a lot of purposes, but it's a lot better now with the buffs that it got in Renegades. So yeah, the main idea is that we are going to be using Doxia as our main crowd control tool that also doubles up as a nice damage option when it comes to higher health targets. And it's also going to be great for getting lots of dark energy fast to get our Transcendence going quickly, because when we are in Transcendence, that is going to be the main gameplay area that we are trying to shoot towards as quickly as possible, because when we are in Transcendence, we are obviously going to have heavily reduced ability cooldowns, which means we're going to get more needles, more suspending explosions, better crowd control, so on and so on. And actually, I was relatively unsure how this build would perform in this day and age, because even since the final shape, the game has experienced a level of power creep that I haven't even seen, you know, with buddies rolling around like crazy and all sorts of other things. Praxic Blade, you know, obviously this build doesn't use the Praxic Blade, but as you can see from the gameplay, the build does essentially hold up very well, even now, over a year later, which is really nice. But anyway, without getting too sidetracked, I do want to talk about the subclass here, because it is going to be slightly different from the original build. Have made a few tweaks to kind of change things around to modernize it a little bit more. So obviously we are going with the Needlestorm super, because this works the best with Doxia, plus it is going to allow us to get Woven Mail when we collect Orbs of Power with Facet of Purpose. We had Song of Flame in the original build. You can run Song of Flame if you want, but then obviously you forfeit the super bonus from Doxia. But that's up to you. I've just gone for Needlestorm here because, you know, more in keeping with the times. After that, I've gone for Phoenix Dive for my class ability. The reason for this is because it has the lowest cooldown. It's going to come important when we talk about our aspects. Arcane Needle, obviously. Then I've gone for the Vortex Grenade. Then for the aspects, the first one we're going to want is Feed the Void, because this one will make it so when we get kills with ability abilities, we will get Devour. This works with tangles, it works with needles, it works with threadlings as well, which is really nice. So this is going to be great for survivability and getting our grenade back faster. Then our second aspect is going to be Weaver's Call. Now in the original build we had Hellion, but I have decided to change it to Weaver's Call now because since then Weaver's Call has received a bunch of changes and now it's pretty good. Threadlings too, they've been buffed a lot since the final shape, so it's going to make it so activate your class ability to weave 3 threadlings and deploy any threadlings you have perched. Dealing damage and defeating targets generates perched threadlings. So we are going to get a lot of threadlings with this build now, or with this aspect, which is really nice. Plus again, it is another source of dark energy to get to our transcendence very quickly, which is good. And it doesn't say it on the description of the aspect, but damage with threadlings charges your class ability. I don't know why it hasn't been updated yet, but as long as you have Weaver's Call active, any damage with threadlings will give you class ability energy back. So we're just going to get lots of Phoenix dives. Obviously, when we do the Phoenix dive, it's going to release 3 threadlings. Now, for the fragments, the first one is Facet of Devotion. This one is going to make it so defeating targets afflicted with stasis or strand debuffs grants bonus light transcendence energy. And the reason we are taking this is because this build is very darkness oriented. You have your arcane needles, you have threadlings, you have needle storm. This is why you could potentially swap needle storm for Song of Flame because it's better for the light energy gains. However, this is mostly covered by the vortex grenade, but having Facet of Devotion does help because if you take a look in game here, if I defeat this darkness debuff target, it's going to give me like a small amount of light energy. And now that wouldn't normally happen if I didn't have the fragment. So it is like a very small amount, yes, but it does help because of how darkness dominated this build is. So that's why we are taking Facet of Devotion. Next is Facet of Grace. Now this fragment is very important because it's going to pair very nicely with our main kinetic weapon of choice, which we will get to, but trust me, you are going to want this because again, it is going to accelerate the rate at which you get your transcendence. Then we have Facet of Dominance to make it so your void and transcendent grenades apply weaken, which is just going to help with, you know, better crowd control, dealing more damage to targets and bosses and things like that. This fragment is basically a must-have on all prismatic builds these days. Then we have Facet of Hope to make it so when we have an elemental buff, which is mostly going to be Devour, and then Woven Mail from our last fragment being Facet of Purpose, where collecting an Orb of Power gives us a elemental effect that matches our equip super, which in this case is going to be Woven Mail. So that is it for the subclass. Let's go on to the weapons and the stats. Now, I did want to be in keeping with the original build from back in the day, and in that build, I used the Kvostov 7GOX. This weapon is amazing. It's still very, very good. I know that primary weapons are in a bit of a sore spot right now, but if they do, and hopefully when they do eventually buff primaries, this one is going to be very good, and it's still pretty solid now. And the reason we are taking this is because it is excellent at building your transcendence meter because of the ricochets. So yes, the ricochets from this gun are very good for building your transcendence meter. In fact, I'll try and find an example in the gameplay that I'll be showing on your screen right now where my transcendence is charging incredibly quickly with the combo of having Kvostov and all of our abilities going out at the same time. There will be times where you can fully charge the meter in literally less than like 5 to 10 seconds, which is pretty insane, and Kvostov definitely helps with that. After that, we are taking a Rocket Pulse. Back in the day, we had a Arc Rocket Sidearm. Well, now we have an Arc Rocket Pulse, and I'm taking this because 1, it's anti-overload, and 2, it's a Rocket Pulse, so it's going to deal with high-value targets very nicely, which is good. Then let's talk stats. First of all, 100 melee. The reason we are taking this is because it maximizes the amount of recharge sort of scalars that we get from any source for our melees, which for a Mattia Doctor build is going to be very important. So 100 melee to get our needles back as quickly as possible and from any regen sources. Then after that, I've gone for 149 weapons. The reason for that is so I can boost the damage of my Kvostov and my Rocket Pulse just by a little bit, and also to increase the size of the bricks that we get, or to increase the chance of finding enhanced ammo bricks on the ground with this so that I can keep my Rocket Pulse maintained. After that, I've also gone for 80 class. This is to make it so I get my Phoenix Dive back very quickly. If you take a look on the class item, I've also gone for a class font, which is going to put me up to 100. Again, like the melee, maximizing how quickly I can get my Phoenix Dive back, which is tied to, you know, my Weaver's Call and things like that, which is very good. Then after that, 80 super, and the rest doesn't matter. Health doesn't matter because you have Devour. Grenade doesn't really matter. Again, I've gone for 2 grenade fonts. I can explain that later in the mod section, but that is going to give plus 40. So when we have armor charge, this is effectively going to be 70 grenade or thereabouts. You can really leverage fonts to help you out with missing stats, and I quite like to do that with my builds these days. Essentially, TLDR, high weapons, high melee, high class, high super, the rest doesn't matter. Set bonuses. I have gone for 2-piece Ferropotent. This is because every time you get healed, it gives you a resist ×1 stack, which is really nice. So this works with Devour, by the way. In fact, I will show you in game right now. So if I was to damage myself here to the point where I'm red health, if I get a kill to trigger Devour, on the left of my screen, you can see that I have resist, and that is going going to be the resist from Ferropotent. It's not refreshable. However, if I do just continue to take damage, reproc Devour, I'm going to get the resist back. So just for doing what you normally do, getting kills with Devour, getting healing, you are going to get an extra amount of damage resistance from Ferropotent, which is very good. Then the second set bonus that we are taking is Ion Adapter, because this one is going to make it so when you get kills with your Rocket Pulse, you are going to get a 20% splash damage resistance, which is also pretty good for this build because we don't have a terrible amount of damage resist going on. We don't have amplified, so this is just going to help with that overall survivability. Now, as far as your artifact is concerned, again, because there aren't too many specific mods like they were back in the day, we do have Elemental Siphon, which was actually on the artifact when we made the build originally, which is pretty nice. Rapid final blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super create an elemental pickup that matches your equipped super. This is just going to allow us to make more tangles, which is pretty cool, or fire sprites if you decide to go for Song of Flame. After that, I've gone for kinetic synthesis to work with Kvostov, then also just kinetic rupture to make it so we occasionally make some more explosions with our Kvostov and the kinetic damage from that. Then I've gone for Armor Smith for some more damage resist, counter energy again, so that when we stun a champion, we gain a little bit of grenade energy, depending if you take this build into champion rated content or not. But to be honest, this build is very good for the Lawless Frontier as well. In fact, you'll be seeing that in the gameplay in the video. It kind of struggles a little bit against champions, I will give you that, because we don't have Overload Auto Rifle. We have Overload Pulse, which is rather strange. I'd much rather it was the other way around, where we had Overload Auto like from last season and then Anti-Barrier Pulse. That would be excellent. But the anti-champion capabilities this season, honestly, a little bit disappointing. So Lawless Frontier, definitely don't worry about it there because there's no champions in the Lawless Frontier. But yeah, like I said, not too many amazing perks from the artifact this season. However, there are a couple which do kind of help. The first one is Singularity Blade, which says that while you have a Void Elemental buff, melee and sword hits weaken targets. So when we have Devour, our Arcane Needles are going to apply Weaken, and if we get a kill with that Arcane Needle, pair it with Void Infestation, where defeating a weakened target spawns a tracking projectile that weakens other targets. It just means that we're going to have a little bit of more occasional weaken. You won't notice this too often, but it is a nice bonus for our Arcane Needles. We are now creating weakening and suspending explosions with them, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that is going to do it for the artifact. Again, nothing too specific for Arcane Needles, but overall just a nice sort of side piece to help us out a little bit. Okay, so wrapping up with the armor mods on the helmet, we are taking a single special ammo finder so we make more ammo with our Rocket Pulse. I have one super font, which is going to take me from 80 to 100 super, and then kinetic siphon so that double kills with Kvostov make orbs. For the gloves, I have two grenade fonts, which is going to take me from 30 to 70 grenade, and then a single focusing strike so melee damage gives a little bit more class ability energy. You could swap this for a heavy-handed though if you wanted. Chest piece doesn't really matter. For the boots, I have stacks on stacks, a arc scavenger to match for my Rocket Pulse, and then a weapons font to take me from 149 to 169 weapons. Finally, for the class item, I have one time dilation, one powerful attraction, and one class font to boost my stats and make it so the fonts last longer and make it easier to collect orbs on the field. So in terms of the gameplay loop for this build, you do just want to start by making an orb somehow, which is going to give you Eyes Up Guardian stacks on your Kvostov, which is going to help to get your Transcendence back a little bit faster. Then just use your needles to create suspending explosions, get more kills with Kvostov, and eventually you will get to your Transcendence meter. This is where the real gameplay loop of the build starts. As soon as you pop Transcendence, literally spam your abilities as soon as you get them, because you will be getting them back very quickly, so just keep spamming over and over. I remember I called this video the Prismatic Spam build, you know, when it was all nice and new back in the day, and it still works. It's still pretty effective. Maybe it's not quite as good as your buddy build. If you wanted a change of pace, if you wanted to go back to an OG classic, it's still very decent and it'll take you through a lot of high level content in this game. So the fashion for the build is here on your screen if you would like to take a pause and copy, and as always, the link to the build is going to be down in the description box below. So that about does it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the build. I hope you enjoyed this rehash of the classic first ever Warlock build that I made for the channel. And also, before we end off, I do just want to say that this video is actually going to be, I believe, the 21st video in a row that I have uploaded in the past 3 weeks, because when this video comes out, it's actually going to be 3 weeks exactly since Renegades came out. Where has the time gone? And I don't know, I just wanted to kind of put that out there because I've never done this kind of daily upload experiment before, and it's been really fun. It's been really fun. So I wanted to kind of cap it off with a build that was just very classic, nice OG video from back in the day. So I hope you enjoyed the video as we are heading into the holiday season. So again, thank you very much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. It's been a crazy 3 weeks. Personally, very much enjoyed Renegades, but I'll save my thoughts for a different video. Hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye for now, dear viewers.